Hello, sweet friends. What is up? It is, I think by the time you're listening to this, either the end of August or early September. Holy smokes, summer has flown by. I don't know about you guys, but our summer was really awesome and really, really fast. We moved to Atlanta 2 years ago from California, and school gets out super early here, but it also starts super early. So our kids got out for the summer at the end of May. I think it was even before Memorial Day. And they went back to school like the first week of August. So our summer felt like it was so fast because our kids have been back to school almost the entire month of August. But most of my friends from the West Coast, they're still out, enjoying their summer vacation. So wherever you are right now, I hope you are enjoying the last remaining days of summer as we start transitioning to what the world is going to bring us next, this beautiful fall and a time to reset, all those beautiful things. So I'm so excited to jump into today's episode. But before I do, a shout out to my clients. If you are one of my clients and you are listening right now, you are awesome. My clients are so awesome. They're these really smart folks. They're these doctors, lawyers, leaders, engineers, entrepreneurs, and they are not perfect. They all have flaws, and they are starting to really feel, a lot of them are starting to really embody that it doesn't matter if I'm not perfect. It doesn't matter that I have flaws. I can still make the world a little bit better than I found it, because they're all so purpose driven and they all want to make a difference in the world. And it is just so super awesome to witness their transformation, watch them go from, all of the muck that's getting in the way of them fully stepping into their authenticity and leaving from a place of, really wholeness. Watching them transition to that, make that transition is just so fun for me to witness. It's so awesome. So if you are thinking of working with me, you are likely pretty awesome too, and I would love to meet you. So I work one-on-one with purpose-driven folks, whether you are a physician, a lawyer, an engineer, an entrepreneur, a leader, someone in corporate America, or corporate anywhere in the world, because I work with people all over the world. So if you are a purpose-driven person who really is ready to leave the world better than you found it, and you're doing your best, but you're feeling unfulfilled, or you're feeling a little overwhelmed or burnt out or stressed or disconnected from what you wanted to create in the beginning, or maybe you're none of those things, but you're feeling constrained because you want to bust out of the current container that you're living in and live in a bigger, more expansive version of yourself, I can help you, and I would love to help you. So if that is you and you are coaching curious, if you are curious about working together, you can schedule an intro call with me and I will get all of your questions answered. We'll get to know each other, and really you can see, like, yeah, is this person for me or not? So I'm going to put that link for you in the show notes. Go ahead and schedule a call with me. I'd love to meet you and we can see whether or not we're a good fit. All right, let's jump into today's episode, episode 20, authenticity versus the masks that you wear. Okay, so last week I spoke about the relationship of shame to authenticity and how shame gets in the way of us being our full, authentic selves. And this week, I am going to jump into the details and get a little bit more nitty gritty and share with you all of the ways that we show up inauthentically, really the masks that we wear. So, what I'm going to talk about today is go through all of the masks that we wear, why we wear them. And as I'm listing them, I want you to listen to see, like, ooh, is that me? And then we're going to talk about what to do about it. Okay. So why does this topic matter? So I talked about this a little bit last week as well, but it's a really important topic. So I really wanted to hit home. So this topic matters because the most powerful magnetic energy that you will ever hold, the most powerful magnetic frequency, is the frequency of authenticity. Why is this? So there is a law in physics, and the law of physics is called constructive interference. Constructive interference. Now, what that law says is that when two frequencies that are of the same amplitude meet each other, so you can imagine like two sine waves that are of the same amplitude, when they meet each other, they magnify each other's effect. So if you think about this happening underwater, two waves kind of meeting each other, it's a humongous, huge ripple effect. It's like a positive force, like a positive tsunami. Instead of a tsunami causing destruction, it's constructive interference. It is so powerful and so beautiful. Now, why does that matter? Because when you amplify your energy, you are able to think about amplified energy, which means it's much bigger now. You are able to affect and make an impact on many more lives. So if you want to make an impact in the world, this is a great way to do it. And I used this analogy last week, but I'm going to share it again because I think it's a really, really simple one and a great one, which is this, which is think about like a radio. Okay, so if you are listening to a radio, what happens when you listen to the radio? You tune in to a specific station. What you are tuning into is to that station's frequency. Now, if you are driving through a town and you tune into a frequency, you might get a like a local radio station. And that local radio station will only take you so far because the frequency ends. It's not amplified. But if you tune into a national frequency, then you can get that station all the way across the country because that frequency is amplified. And that is what is possible for you when you experience constructive interference and you magnify your frequency. When you magnify your frequency, it means two things. Again, you've now increased the likelihood of the folks that you're going to impact. So your impact grows because that's amplification. So your impact will grow. But I also said it's magnified. So when you increase amplification and magnetism, you're not just impacting more people, you are also calling in more of what you desire. Now, when you think about kind of like, I don't know, the law of attraction that people talk a lot about, the universal law of attraction, the universal law of attraction is not just think about something and it becomes true or envision something and it becomes true. No, what it is you are fully embodying what it is that you want. You are fully embodying that frequency. And when you can fully embody that frequency, that's what the universe responds to. When you're fully being what it is that you want, you're speaking it out loud, but you're also embodying it. That is what the universe responds to. So speaking and embodying. So constructive interference for an individual happens when we can amplify our own frequency by being who we are, embodying who we are, but speaking that truth. So I was just working with one of my coaching clients on this, and what came up is she's a natural born leader. She's incredible at leading. It's just so intuitive to her. It's so simple. And when she is coming from her highest self, she is embodying that energy, and it's also reflected in the words that she's speaking. And so she's able to impact people. People are drawn to her energy, and she's more influential. But she noticed that there are times where she feels like a leader, but she doesn't show up that way. Like she's not speaking that way. It's not speaking her truth. And she noticed in those times, it's because maybe she doesn't feel empowered to do it. Maybe she feels like somebody else has more authority than her in that space. And then she sort of shrinks. So she is no longer showing up as her most authentic self. And you can tell she's sort of shrinking herself versus amplifying herself. That is how constructive interference works. You create that really powerful magnetic frequency of authenticity when you are speaking your truth and you are embodying your truth. So I'm going to give you two examples of how this happens in the real world. So think about someone who both of these people do it, and both of these people are being their authentic selves, and both of these people have tremendous impact in the world. And you might not align, you might not agree with either of them or one of them, but they are both doing the same thing. They are both showing up their most authentic selves. They've amplified their frequency and they have made they're making a tremendous impact in the world. Whether you believe that impact is good or bad, they're doing it. One of those people is Oprah Winfrey. Oprah leaned fully into her authenticity. And, I know her story a lot because I followed her. I read a lot of her books because I think she's incredible, the queen. And I remember when she fully shifted into who she was and she had gotten a contract for her daytime. Oh, she was still doing news and she said no, that she was going to pull away from that and she was going to start her own network. That's when she created the Oprah Winfrey Network, OWN. And she fully leaned into her authenticity. And she was already big before that, but holy smoke, she blew up when she did that. So there's an example for you. And the other person who does this well is Donald Trump. Like, woof, I don't know how you feel about that dude, but that dude stands in his full authenticity and look at what happens. Like, whether you believe the impact he's making is good or bad, my politics, I think, if you've been listening to my podcast for a long time. But he's doing the same thing. He's amplified he's amplified who he is. And look at the impact he's making in the world. You might not think it's great impact, but it's still impact. Even if it's an impact that's lower vibrational, if that is hurting people, it's still an impact. Okay. So I'm going to jump in and talk about all of the different masks. And as I'm listing them off, I want you to see if you can identify the masks that you wear. And I want you to know there's probably going to be more than one of masks that you wear. And when I talk about these, I also want you to think about them like these inauthentic patterns. Think about them as inauthentic patterns. And the inauthentic patterns should give you this kind of sense of like, ugh, that's cringy. It's like cringe-worthy, these patterns. And I think cringe is such a good word because I can't think of a better word for this besides cringe. It's like these patterns are hashtag cringe. Okay, so the first mask I want to talk about is the mask of overconfidence. The mask of overconfidence. What is the mask of overconfidence and why do people do that? So it feels like a sense of arrogance. You've met people that have been arrogant and you can pick up on that right away. And sometimes it's well-meaning people. Listen, it was me. I remember when I got my very first medical director job, I was like a department chair and I was so insecure. I was so insecure that I overcompensated by thinking that I needed to be like very overconfident. And I didn't mean to be arrogant, but I'm pretty sure that that's probably how some people picked up that energy. But really, overconfident people are hiding an insecurity of not being good enough. It's a big insecurity and they're overcompensating. There's an effect called the Dunning-Kruger effect. You may have heard of it. And essentially what it is you don't know what you don't know. So some people are overconfident because they've walked around their whole lives thinking that, oh, they're so entitled. They're supposed to be like that, But other people are incredibly insecure and they're showing up that way to compensate what they don't know. So think about this because the difference between someone who's overconfident versus someone who's just confident, the difference between those two things is their level of humility. Humility is what draws people who are just genuinely confident. I'm okay not knowing that. It's okay that I don't know that. They're humble, they're curious because humility, the way I think about it is it just means being curious. Like humble people are curious. They don't know and they're not like insecure. They don't know and they're like, "Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't know about that. Tell me more." And that's the difference between overconfidence and confidence. Okay, the next mask is the mask of playing small. Yes, this is definitely a mask because your authentic self, if this is a mask you wear, your authentic self probably does not want to play small. It probably wants to show up and it probably wants to make an impact and it probably wants to be really helpful, but it's afraid. Maybe as a kid, you didn't want to take up too much space because you didn't want to be a problem. Maybe as a kid, you were told not to take up space. Maybe you didn't think it was safe to take up space because I'll tell you, holy smokes, boy, did I wear this mask. I wore the mask of playing small for so long because I was so afraid of two things of like, who am I? Why would I take up space, But also, I inherited all of the programming that as women, it wasn't safe for us to take up space. Because look at the programming around us, especially if you come from older generations or you saw women of older generations and it wasn't safe for them to take up space. So, of course, maybe you inherited that yourself. All right, another mask we wear is the mask of perfectionism, everybody's favorite, because so many of my clients and so many of you right now listening, there's probably parts of you that there are times where you wear this mask. What are we hiding when we wear this mask? I said this last week, but perfectionism is a type of shame that's cloaked in gold. I don't remember where I heard that. That's not mine, but it's just so clever. So, what we try so hard to hide through perfectionism is things that we are ashamed of. And if you are an entrepreneur or someone that really wants to help others, this is a really big problem because what this does is it masks who you really are. And if you think about, the hero's journey, if you've ever heard that term, if you're an entrepreneur, you probably have heard that term. The hero's journey is your character arc. It's who you are, what got you to where you are today, and who you've become. And people are inspired by the entire journey, not just the end point. If people are just like, oh, yeah, I'm the best. Look at me. I'm so awesome. People are going to think like, well, that person doesn't get me. But if you say, listen, I was here. I was so insecure. I didn't know any of this about me. I was overworking, all of these things. And then I learned like, whoa, that doesn't serve me. Wow, look at what I'm hiding. Then my relationships became strained. By the way, this is my story. My relationships became strained. I was like struggling to my husband and I were like living in this partnership, but we weren't super tight the way we are now. My relationship with my kids was strained. I was burning out because I was working so hard to try to hide all of these things, all these insecurities. And then I learned, whoa, none of that is who I really am. And I was able to heal so many parts of myself. And now I get to show up and I try my best to be the most authentic version of myself. And I know I'm not perfect. I know it's not going to be like that all the time. I know that little fear is going to show up sometimes and be like, hey, you can't say that. You can't do that there. But I do my best. And look at that. That's the entire character arc. And that's what you hide. You hide that gift of who you really are from people when you wear the mask of perfectionism. Okay, next mask is the Zen mask. The Zen mask is the mask that we wear when we think we're supposed to be super calm all the time or stoic all the time, or really just like, oh, I always have my emotions under control. I never get angry. I never get upset. When really underneath, it's because we're afraid of emotional intimacy. We're afraid that, if we let our emotions out, what does that mean about me? Does it mean I'm quote unquote too emotional? Am I going to lose my credibility? Or maybe we're masking a ton of emotions we haven't processed, like sadness or grief, just stuff we haven't processed. I worked with so many incredible women who just we have programming, right? Like you have to always be Zen because you'll lose your credibility if you're too emotional. Or you have to, for me, I used to think that sadness was just like unproductive because I didn't want to feel sadness. And really, I was just afraid that if I let myself feel, I would feel too much and then it would be unproductive. That was just a fear I had. So that's the Zen mask. And then there's the mask of I don't care what people think. If this is you, it's likely a mask unless you are a sociopath or a narcissist. And I don't think my podcast resonates with those people. So I don't think you're any of those people. So if this is you, if you think this, I want you to know that it's okay. It's probably not true. Because listen, truthfully, we all care. It's how the human brain is wired so that we can be resilient and so that we are not alone. Because back in the days, if we were alone, we wouldn't survive the elements. So you probably do care what people think, and that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to care what people think. Okay, and then there's the mask of always being on. Like you're so afraid of people thinking that you might be lazy. So you're always doing, oh, I have to always be doing something. I can never sit still. Oh, I'm just the person that always has to be moving, always has to be doing. When really deep down, it's a problem of emotional intimacy. You're so afraid that if you slow down, You'll have to be with your own emotions or connect with somebody else. And that can feel really hard, especially if you have a bunch of unprocessed emotions. I remember a friend of mine who had, God, this is terrible. It was terrible. She lost her husband. And immediately after she lost her husband, she was already pretty like busybody, but holy smoke, she went into overdrive when she lost her husband because if she had slowed down, she would have had to feel, and the feeling was really, really tough. So it was something she had to be with. All right. Then there's like the pseudo conscientious person, those people that want you to believe that they have it all together. So they pretend like they're naturally organized and naturally put together and there's no flaw. It's very similar to the perfectionist mask. And then there's the know-it-all. The know-it-all, you know those people that want to exercise their dominance and their sense that they know everything because they're afraid of being vulnerable, or vulnerability feels shameful and scary, so they always have to be right. And then there's the fake extrovert. Oh man, this was another mask I used to wear. I'm already extroverted. If you've ever met me in person, I love being around people. I get energy, but I'm pretty like combo. I love being around people, but I also love my own space and I need to be alone to reconnect with myself and refuel. I need that. But I used to be the fake extrovert. I used to want to be high energy all of the time because, deep down, I was afraid that sadness again was unproductive. And I used to think I had to be fake and make everybody just like comfortable all the time. And that is not a good place to come from, I have to tell you. And so that is where toxic positivity comes from. So that's the fake extrovert. The one other one that I haven't listed, I don't think I listed, was the people pleasing mask. The people pleasing mask. Again, oof, am I familiar with this one? Those folks that want to avoid conflict at any cost. And, usually they have some past pain that they haven't processed, or maybe they experienced a ton of conflict, or maybe they want to avoid conflict because if they have to interact with conflict, it might mean that they're not good enough. And so they're constantly looking for validation, always looking for approval. And usually it shows up as external validation all of the time. Okay, so tons of masks I just listed. I hope you were able to identify if any of those resonate with you. And if they do, just notice, because now we are going to move on to what it is that we do about it. But before we talk about what do we do about it, there's a few things to consider. And these two things are really, 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 really important. Number one, the concept of authenticity, again, the highest frequency we come from, authenticity is contextual. What I mean by that is who you choose to be in certain spaces or certain settings is contextual. For example, I'm an ER physician. Back when I was practicing clinically all the time, I would come across patients that were not very kind. They were mean and they would yell and they were just like, they were not, they weren't their best selves. Of course, you're in the emergency department, but they were also just rude and unkind. And I would put on the Zen mask on purpose because I needed to keep my cool and I needed to be calm because the authentic part of me wanted to be like, hey, you can't treat me like that and yell back at them. But I know that if I had done that, it would have escalated the situation and it would not have led to something productive. So I want you to think about authenticity as being contextual. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Because the other reason why is one, it's not going to be effective if you're showing up the way you feel, but all the time, right? It's contextual. But the other reason why is it can also be perceived as being selfish. And this is something that's so important. So, what I want you to think about when you're being authentic is you get to be authentic to the highest version of you, your inner sage, your inner wise woman or wise man. You are being authentic to that version of you, not the version of you that is your ego. Because sometimes I hear people say things, and I get this a lot with the women I work with that have taken on leadership roles, or people of color, or physicians who have moved straight from clinical medicine to now also doing administration. And there's this fear, there's this concern that I want to be true to myself. And there's like a fear that you can't be true to yourself and also do this new thing you're doing. You can't be true to yourself and also be in administration as a physician. You can't be true to yourself and also be a Latina woman in leadership. And that is so important to think about, because what is happening is the fear. Anytime you notice that you're saying that because you're afraid that you're not going to be true to yourself, that is your cue. Fear is your cue that your ego is showing up. Listen, there's no need to ever vilify the ego. There's nothing wrong with the ego. The ego, we have been gifted to keep us safe, to keep us alive, to keep us, it's part of our gifts of resilience. It's part of the reason why the human species is some of the most resilient people walking the planet, because of the ego. So we don't need to vilify it, but we do need to notice and be aware of when it shows up. Because if we can be aware of when it shows up, then we can see it and we can say, I see why you're showing up, Zen mask. Because if I yell back at this patient, it would not be great. Or I can see why you're showing up, Zen mask of whatever it is, like, no, whatever mask you're wearing. Because you know that if you were to put that on, you'd likely be more effective. And so what you need to do whenever you're noticing the mask showing up for you, you need to ask yourself, why is this mask showing up for me? And listen for the answer. And if you like the answer, if you like the reason, then it is great. It is a great reason to wear that mask. And when you can check in with yourself, make space to check in, be intentional, then what you're actually doing is you are choosing the mask and you are wearing it, as opposed to the mask wearing you, which is what tends to happen most of the time because we are not coming from an intentional place. It's just reflexive. So again, you always want to check in with yourself as to why I am choosing to wear this mask right now. And if you like the reason, then wear it, because you get to choose who you are going to be. The mask does not wear you. You wear the mask. Okay, so if you identified with any of these masks, let's talk about what to do. Step one is exactly what I said. Check in with yourself. Why am I wearing this mask? This is a big one for example, introverts. We live in a world still where extroverts get rewarded more. And so if you are generally an introvert, but you're wearing the extrovert mask, check in with yourself. Why? Because I know that I want to go out there and network, because I know it's probably going to be good for my career, and I'm choosing to do that. Fantastic. Same thing with the Zen mask. Same thing with the overconfident mask. Back when I was showing up as overconfident, I was not doing that intentionally. I was incredibly insecure. I had no idea that I was even showing up like that. It was, and I knew that there was something off, but I didn't have the awareness that I have today. However, had I known now what I know then, I probably would have shown up differently. Still likely a little overcompensating, but it would have been from an intentional place. Instead of being arrogant, I would have maybe just like maybe been showed up a little quieter, asked more questions, and it would have still been confident, but overconfident maybe, but confident and curious instead of overconfident and afraid, overconfident and insecure. Because that's just what I've needed to do in that moment to gain the respect. I was leading people that were like so much older than me. I was leading people that were like every archetype you can think of as a leader, as a boss, all those things, they were the people that I had to lead. And I'm this like 5', 100-pound Latina that was super young. I was like, I think it was 1 year out of residency when I got my first department chair job. It was so terrifying for me because I made it mean that I wasn't ready, that I was young, that all of those things. And I had to prove myself. And had I known now had I known then what I know now, I still would have shown up in a way that maybe would have been a little overconfident, because I didn't have the confidence. So it would have been overconfident, but it would have been a mask that I chose out of intention. And that is all the difference. Because when you choose out of intention, you are choosing. So you are aligning with yourself. You are saying, hey, this is who I have to be in this moment. This is who I have to be in this moment. And you can even ask whatever you believe in, source, the universe, God, support me in being the most authentic version of myself in this moment as I choose to be XYZ. And that is going to incredibly support you because now, again, you're choosing to be the most authentic version of you in that moment because authenticity is contextual. I think a lot about that a lot with the Zen mask because man, I am so good at shifting the energy and creating Zen in an environment of total chaos. So I was amazing in the emergency department because it's always total chaos. And I could create Zen. I could go in to run a code and be there, especially the more and more experience I got, I can be there in confidence and in Zen. And then I would shift all of the energy with my patients that were being rude or just not very kind. I could speak to them with this tone of voice and I could help redirect the energy in that room. So now they were also experiencing a little bit more peace and calmness. And that, sweet friends, is what is available to you when you choose to be aware of the masks that you wear and why. So notice, here's an invitation to you. Notice when it is that you put on the masks, what masks they are, and how you know when you're wearing them. And then ask yourself, do I want to wear this mask? Check in with the reason. If the answer is no, then it's an opportunity for you to grow a little bit because it's uncomfortable to take off the mask. It's really uncomfortable, but it is a great opportunity for you to grow. And if you want help doing this, reach out to me, sweet friends. I would love to help you. And again, I'm going to put that link for you to schedule a call with me in my show notes. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, please, please, please leave a review. It would mean so much to me. And it really helps so many other people find this podcast. So please leave a review if you enjoyed this, maybe just your few takeaways. And yeah, let's connect. I will talk to all of you soon. I will see you next time. Adios.